Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Heart-Based Business Show. I am so happy you're here with us today. I am Dr. Shirlene, and I'm here to talk to you about speaking. So you're a speaker. You really want to watch this show because it's going to be phenomenal. We're going to tell you what's going on in the speaking world right now, and your big question might be, can I get a speaking gig with TEDx right now? And you're going to be surprised to find out. This gentleman is so wonderful, and I just met him recently, and he is totally in the know. I just can't believe how much he knows, and we've had a lot of discussion. So we're going to talk to you about how to get to the top of that speaking level so that you're always hired and you're always recognized. We're going to talk to you about what will give you better pricing so you can stop speaking for free. And he's going to also tell you how he can support you in doing that. And wait till you see what he has as an offer. I have never had such a generous guest. So you're going to want to stay with us right to the end so that you can learn all this juicy information about speaking. I'll be right back. And welcome back. As I said, we're going to have a lot of fun today, and you're going to learn some really great information about how to get out there and get speaking gigs. This gentleman is just amazing. He is a multiple-time TEDx speaker, and he's also the host of the top-rated Conversations with Passion radio show. And I'm really excited because I'm going to get to be on his show. Is that cool or what? That's one of the great things about having a live web TV show is that you can share with everybody that you know, and you can also be on their show too. And he is the founder of the speaking program Blu Talks. That's spelled BLU. And he was telling me all about it the other day, and I can't wait till he shares it with you. And he's been featured in multiple television specials. Let's welcome Corey Poirier. Hi, Corey. Welcome to the show. I'm happy you're here with us today.
Hi, Charlene. I'm super excited to be here as well. Excited to aim to make some magic happen.
Yeah. Why don't you start by telling us, I just want to get right into this because I know that other people do too. And tell us what that secret is for why the top speakers are the top speakers, how they got there and how they stay there.
So there's a couple of answers to that because there's the side on the, let's call it execution when you're on the stage. I mean, there's that side. There's, a great quote. One of my favorite quotes, I subscribe to it all the time, is by Steve Martin. It's a quote that says, "Be so good they can't ignore you." And so one thing I would say is these speakers aim to stay and be as good, so good that people can't ignore them. So first of all, they have the goods. They deliver the goods. And that, I think, is crucial and, if, in some ways a lost art. But if you're so good that people can't ignore you, you're going to get more bookings than the person that people can ignore. So let's just put that in.
That's a no-brainer.
No-brainer. It's funny. It's a no-brainer, but there's a lot of people I don't think that practice their craft enough to be at that high level. So we'll call it this. That's the price of entry, just to be so good they can't ignore you. And then so that means working on your craft over and over, learning what you did wrong, all that kind of good stuff. Now, the other side is they do two things. So one, I always share this whenever I'm starting a talk around becoming a world-class speaker, or when I'm coaching people, is I'll ask this question and I'll put pictures of people on the screen at the same time, whether that's somebody like a Lisa Nichols, a Zig Ziglar, Tony Robbins, whoever it might be. And I'll say, what are these three? I usually have three on the screen. What do these three speakers have in common? And the guesses are, they're all charismatic. They're all great speakers. They're all students of the game. It could be anything. And the funny part is the answers are almost always right. But it's not the answer I'm looking for. The answer I'm looking for is Steve Jobs or Tony Robbins or Lisa Nichols isn't trying to be somebody else. They're not trying to be the next Les Brown. Tony Robbins is happy to be the first Tony Robbins.
Mm-hmm.
But when people come to me and I say, what do you want to become as a speaker? They always say, oh, I want to be the next Tony Robbins. And so the second thing world-class speakers do really well is they own who they are and they're happy with who they are and they embrace that and they figure out what makes that good. And then they become the first Lisa Nichols. Or, in this case, they become the first John Smith. Enter name here, whatever your name is. So that's the second thing. Third thing, so now that they know that they shouldn't try to copy what somebody else is doing, here's where it kind of becomes sort of counterintuitive to what I just said. The next thing is they need to study what are the fundamentals that all great speakers have in common, even though when you watch them on the stage, they look completely different. So if I gave an example of, let's say, Tony Robbins and Lisa Nichols, and then if we picked a speaker that's a little more methodical, I'm trying to think of who I would say is the speakers. There's a lot of great examples, but a speaker that's a little more calm and chill on the stage, and they're still passionate, but they're very they're not all over the stage. Tony comes out, he's got the big arms, he's exactly. Lisa is not the same as Tony, but she's very she owns the stage and she's very operatic almost, like she's very emotionally involved in the stage. So different totally, but if I put a third person there and it was somebody that comes out and just say, hey everybody, thanks so much for being here today, but they're not jumping around, those three speakers couldn't look more different on the stage. But if I put a flip chart on the wall here and start listing the things they're doing, you'll start to see a lot of commonalities. So for instance, typically speaking, most great speakers speak in threes. So I call it the rule of threes. So you'll see, you might see Lisa Nichols on the stage and she's actually, moving her fingers to count three as she's saying stuff, or she's actually saying it in threes. And then again, you might see Tony Robbins doing that. They both look different on the stage, but they're both using threes. They both are masterful storytellers and they have that in common. You can feel their passion on the stage. They have that in common. And Charlene, I can go down a list a mile long of all the things that they do that are very common, even though when you're watching the stage, you don't even notice the differences. You don't even notice that they're doing the same thing. And at the same time, how different they are. Like you just are in the moment with them. But there's some fundamentals that always work. There's things like Brene Brown, one of the things she said about her TEDx talk that she did that I thought was so brilliant is she actually, inside, she felt as if, and she acted as if she was talking to the most important person in her life. Mm-hmm. And that's how she delivered the message, as if she was delivering it to, let's say, a sister. But yet she approached the whole audience as if they were that one person. And at the same time, still made eye contact throughout the audience. But so that's another great example. They make eye contact throughout the audience. They don't just stare at one person.
Yes.
But again, they also understand the power of treating the whole audience like I love you as a whole unit, even though you're an audience. And so, again, I could go for quite a while, but you'll see there's a lot of things that they share. And then at the same time, they make sure they're authentic. One last thing I'll add into the sharing is, one thing I noticed that they do, and I describe it like this, they realize that content is king, as we hear about all the time. So it's important what your content is, but they also realize that emotional connection is queen.
Yes.
Queen rules the castle. Mm-hmm. Queen almost always rules the castle. So what that means to me is they know how to connect with the audience with great content. They don't try to go one or the other. If they had to choose one or the other, I would say connecting with your audience is even stronger than what your content is. Sounds counterintuitive as well. But the ideal situation is to have both. The reason I say that is think about a time when you watch a speaker with an amazing stage presence who engages you, who's dynamic, who's passionate. If you put that speaker up there with fair content, most people would rather listen to that speaker than the speaker with the most brilliant content in the world that puts them to sleep.
Right.
If I had to choose, I would say emotional connection, but why choose? Go for both. So Charlene, that's in about 5 minutes. Hopefully I've given you a big range of the world-class speakers, what they do different and what they have in common.
You did. That's wonderful. I really appreciate that. And it's interesting because I watch them too. I've been watching them for years and I saw that, how they really have the same system in place. It's just different because they're authentic. So they're real people. That's a big thing.
100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you another question. Tell me about your Blu Talks. I don't think many people have heard about that, but I know it's getting a lot of stir and I'd love it for you to share it with the audience.
Yeah, so I think the best way to describe it before I dive a little further into it is to say if you took TEDx and Chicken Soup for the Soul and they had a baby, The better way to say it is that it's a mixture between the two of them, if you mix the two of them. So what does that mean? What it means is that most people know what TED Talks are or TEDx Talks are. Most people are familiar with Chicken Soup for the Soul. The difference between the two, I mean, one's a book and one's a live stage events, but the other difference between the two is Chicken Soup for the Soul is very inspirational, can be spiritual, holistic, all that kind of stuff. TEDx typically not so much. So TEDx is more about let's get an idea that's scientifically proven and create that idea that's worth sharing with the world. Whereas Chicken Soup for the Soul, you could have somebody talk about a synchronicity they had in their life, which somebody on the TEDx stage might not believe that synchronicity even exists. So what we tried to do is marry the two of them and say, let's create a branded talk series where you can come on that stage and talk about business, or you can talk about your synchronicity that you had. And so Blu, maybe not surprisingly then, stands for, because there is an acronym that is spelled out, it's Business, Life, Universe. So that's the BLU, Business, Life, Universe. And the universe is that spiritual side, that holistic healing, that type of thing. So we've run 4 events so far. And on those stages, you will see speakers come on, like I said, and talk about synchronicity. You'll see another speaker come on and talk about a life story. And you'll come on and see a speaker talk about business strategy. And anything in between there, which really covers a lot of ground, but anything in between there kind of goes. The other part about Blu Talks is our subtitle is Speaking Reimagined. And so what the idea behind that is, you could have somebody come on the stage and be interviewed, a la David Letterman style, somebody on the stage come and speak, and you could have somebody on the stage come and do record their podcast, and speaking live, but recording their podcast. Or we have somebody coming on, I think, at the next ones, and they're going to be doing like the, what do you call it, the bowls, like the healing bowls that you make the sound bowls.
Oh, fun. That's fun.
And we've had people come on and do a group meditation for 5 minutes as part of their 15-minute talk. So it's kind of covers a lot of ground. But the idea I have is for people that watch these videos to be moved, to be impacted, to want to make change in their life and in help making change in the lives of others. And then the other part to finish off the Blu Talk story is, in addition to the live talks we recorded that are going to start coming out in August. So the launch takes place, I believe it's August 4th. It's whatever Tuesday, the first Tuesday in August. We're launching the videos then. It'll be every week we'll be launching a new video. And the alternate day that week we'll launch exclusive stuff like interviews with Bluesters, we call them Bluesters, or clips from our virtual events, stuff like that. So we'll have 2 videos coming out a week on YouTube and on our main page, which is blutalks.com, Blu without the E. But then on top of that, which is really unique, is we're launching with a podcast. We're also launching with a book series, both on the same day. And then we already launched the virtual events, which blew my mind. At this point, we know they're seen by over 20,000 people. And this is without us being launched. So I was blown away by that. So that's going to be an ongoing thing too, every couple of months. So in the future, you'll see all 4 of those platforms. And we already have other platforms in the works. So lots coming out with Blu Talks. But that's Blu Talks in maybe a couple-minute nutshell.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful. And so how are you doing these? You're saying you're launching it August 1st. Have you been doing them live, or are you doing them virtually? How are you doing them?
So a great question, especially in the present time and the world that exists today. So there's a 2-sided answer to that. One side is we recorded 4 events already. So we have 40-some talks that were already recorded. And we did a couple things. One, I delayed the launch a little bit to buy us more time. Mm-hmm. So it's all about pivoting now. And so and also I was planning to come out with 2 videos a week. Now we switched it to 1 so we can buy more time.
Yes.
But what's really neat is once we launch, I've already mapped out the whole launch schedule. And right now, without doing one more thing, not using our virtual events or anything else, one more thing, I think we can go to about March 15th without doing anything else for airing those weekly videos. Meaning, in a perfect world, we have to film more stuff by March something. Now, now the variable. So here's what's going to happen. I have a two-pronged approach. In a perfect world, it's going to happen. We're going to be able to do live events. Our events are small, just like TEDx. They're not like 1,000 people events. These are like 75 to 150 person events, and they're designed to be that way. So first of all, we can probably do in small places social distancing, but there's still remains to be seen because we don't know if we're going to have a second wave. So let's assume the worst, if we had a second wave. What my plan then is to start getting people, and the challenge will be getting them set up to do this on their own. But what I want to do is get people to start filming. Basically, we'll film them live at a place local, and we'll the time. So that, but we'll have to organize all this to make it happen. So I'm not really looking at that. But we have to. This way, they'll still be live, like they'll still be in front of the camera live, not just virtually in front of the camera. I mean, it'll be like they're doing a live event with just themselves, essentially, in each separate place. So, and there's some places where there's like 4 or 5 speakers, and they can probably still get together as long as they're social distancing, and we can film them. So we're going to find ways around it if we have to. But no matter what, those people that were booked for the events that we're doing, we're still going to bring them back together. It's just that if we have to do another short term, because it's the interesting part is that there's no real knowledge as to what's going to happen, in the sense that a lot of people say, well, we won't be able to do events again until early 2021. But what happens then? Meaning, like, why do people say it's early 2021? What's changing then? We don't know if we have a vaccine by then. Yeah. So for me, I think the 2 best possible scenarios is we can do our live event with social distancing, or we find a way to film people as if they're at a live event for the short term until we can go back to do live events. I will tell you right now, we have 6 events booked for the fall. And we don't know. I mean, it's all up in the air right now. The first one is mid-September. That one's like, we're talking 2.5 months away. So nobody knows. But that one, I'm crossing my fingers really hard for that one. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it's also important to take things into context and realize COVID only hit North America 3 months ago, roughly.
Yes, so, and it seems like forever, though.
It seems like forever. So what I'm saying is, I'm optimistic that 3 more months is a long time.
Yes.
But who knows? So we have mid-September, we have 1 booked. We have 2 booked in roughly mid-October. Those are in Canada. I'm very optimistic about those ones. I'm based in Canada. And I think by then we'll be able to travel around Canada without issues. I don't know that, but that's what it looks like. And then we have 1 October 31st, and then 2 at the end of November. So, and the end of November ones, it sounds strange for me to say I'm optimistic because it's in New York, where, of course, it's been really, they've had a lot of troubles. But if you read about New York now, they're on the decline in a big way.
Oh, they're much better off. Much better off.
They're saying that they're actually the state with the least amount of local infections now. So, having said that, if there's no big second wave, or New York starts the big second wave sooner, it's still very realistic in 4.5, 5 months that New York will still be able to run the event. And we're bringing it to Columbia University, and I know the president of Columbia said they're opening in the fall.
Okay.
So we'll see. I'm optimistic, but I'm also, let's just say that none of us know what's going to happen now. So I can't sit there and say it's 100%. So if it goes ahead, we'll film them, and then we'll buy ourselves another whatever amount of time that is, probably actually almost a year. And then, because we film, more than a year, because we'll film probably 70 at those events, which basically 1 a week means 1.5 years almost. So then we'll be covered for a long time. If we can't film them, we'll go one-offs and film people one at a time.
So tell me how this will relate to, or in comparison to TEDx. I know that's what everybody's wondering.
So it's interesting from my perspective. I'm a big TEDx fan, obviously. I've done 3 TEDx talks. People come to me and say, how did you land them? And my speaking program gave me to help them land TEDx talks. So first and foremost, I need to make it clear, I'm a big TEDx fan. But at the same time, my students were coming to me and saying, I want to speak about, insert name here. I want to speak about Reiki, if people are familiar with what Reiki is. So
I know they don't do that.
No. And so they would come to me and say, well, okay, I can't do TEDx. And they weren't like judgmental or bothered by it. And I was neither. They just said, I can't do it. So where else? And I couldn't give them an alternate solution. I couldn't come up with one other branded talk event that travels around besides TEDx and does multiple talks a year, multiple events a year. So I just couldn't find another solution. So I decided to create that solution. So to me, there's maybe a little overlap where you might go, okay, well, you could see somebody come on my stage conceivably and talk about what I talked about at TEDx. So at TEDx, for example, I talked about what would you tell your younger self? So that would easily fit into Blu Talks. But then at the same time, you could see a person talk on TEDx about, I saw one not that long ago with a guy who replied to spammers, and he built this whole way, and he was one of my favorite talks, and he got a book about it now too. Forget his name, but anyway, that talk could be, but most likely or more likely wouldn't be on a Blu Talk stage. But then the other side is, you could see, again, we had people at Harvard, is where we ran the last event, talking about synchronicity and talking about, a life event that they had happened, that somebody came up and touched them on the knee and changed their life forever. And they felt put energy into them. Well, you wouldn't see that on a TEDx stage. So I think you have a fairly clear line of what you will see on either stage, and then you may see some overlap.
I
But
see.
I think it's, and I will say too, Charlene, for that reason, it's even a bit of a different audience, because you're going to have people that are, and this is a big part of the world now, consciousness healers, conscious people, very conscious people that maybe they don't watch TEDx talks. Now they're going to have something that they can say, okay, I could, again, see somebody coming on here and talking about heart-based leadership, and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of difference, and then there's a little bit of similarity.
Now, I know you help people get on TED Talks. So talk to them a little bit about that program and how you make that work for them.
Yeah, so we have essentially it's a branded talk program, and so we help people land their branded talk, and that could be, it could be a Blu Talk, could be a TEDx, it could be Goalcast. We have one of our students, her Goalcast video has been viewed over 10 million times. So that, of course, is game-changing and life-changing. So it's a branded talk, helping people land a branded talk. And really what that looks like for people is people will come to me and say they've struggled to get on. Let's use TEDx as the example. Struggled for 2 years to get on a TEDx stage. They've applied 20-some times and had no luck. And they're coming to me because they said, well, you've had 3 of them, and you don't have any kind of national sort of news story. Because typically if you had a national news story, that would help you because it's very topical, and you're introducing somebody's story to the world, but it's already a story that's in the media. So one of our students, for instance, was a burn victim at age 2. Her story had been turned into a documentary, and she was still struggling to get a TEDx talk. And she came to me saying, how is it that you have 3 without having a news story like mine? And so having said that, what I do is I help people that are in that situation understand, sort of reverse engineer, but understand what the process looks like and how to increase your odds to land your TEDx talk. And as far as results, so far in 2019, we had a student every 3 weeks that landed their TEDx talk. And we had probably 6 or maybe 7 students that came to us. And we only started this program a year and a half ago, but I think about 6 or 7 students that came to us that hadn't landed TEDx, tried multiple times, that are now multiple time TEDx speakers like me. And so it's essentially showing people, I guess you'll call it, the process that I use to increase the odds dramatically. And, just to give people an understanding of that, I'll give you an example. It's like if you applied at a TEDx event or a similar event, and you didn't understand that when they asked the question, have you delivered this talk before, and if so, where, you would probably think that they're wanting to know you're comfortable delivering the talk. So you might list like 20 places you delivered the same talk before that you're applying to TEDx with. But that TEDx event could be, in fact, wanting to know that they're the first time, they're going to release it to the audience for the first time exclusively, and that they have the rights to it, and they're the ones that are introducing it to the world. So if it says, have you delivered it before and where and how many times, most people would think that means they want to know that you're comfortable delivering it, and that you're going to, that they're looking to know that you've delivered it a lot and audiences love it, when in fact they're hoping that maybe this is the first time you delivered it. So I help people navigate what that looks like, again, to increase their odds, Charlene, because a lot of people go out there and apply, and all they do is get on there and they type the application and cross their fingers. And in my experience, that's all that really is hope. That's a hope strategy. Yeah. And I will say, to finish that off, people just type the application and not knowing, which one TEDx organizer shared with me recently, that they turned down 99% of the applicants based on how they answer the first question. And this is a TEDx event that gets over 2,000 applicants. So first you go, okay, well, I only got a chance, I have one spot to get out of 10 possible spots, and I'm competing with 2,000 people. But you're not. If you know how to answer that first question, you're probably down to 100 or 50 even that you're now competing with, because of all the people didn't make it past question 1.
Wow. Okay, that's really good tip. Did everybody get that? Yeah, that's a huge tip. Say that last part again. I want you to really tell them what you meant by that.
Yeah, well, and let me add in the aspect that's important there is that you got to think here's what the summation is. We show you how to think like the TEDx organizer who's looking at your application. And so if you just send it in randomly, like I said, type it out, send them in randomly, just so people know, if the event accepts 2,000 applications for 10 spots, your odds of landing that are less than 1%. But just let's put numbers in that. And the small events, which we teach people too, should you look at a small rural event where there's less applicants? But even then, you're still 10% is your max. So think about that. Your odds are 1 in 10%. So when you hear people submitting 20 times, that's the reason, because their odds are low every time. But if an organizer tells me that They look at how people answer that first question out of 20 questions or 10 or 15 and basically decide that 99% of these people aren't going to be in because of how they answered that question. If you know how to answer that one question, or if you can somehow, if you don't come to somebody like me that knows how they think, and you can just think through what am I looking for in that question, then you can actually increase your odds to maybe whatever that number works out like, but maybe 80% from one. Because now you're competing with 50 or 100 other people who made it through that first question versus 2,000 that started.
Brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for reiterating that, because I know that's the answer that people are looking for. But like you said, they have to know how to answer the question, and that's you who takes care of that kind of thing, right?
Yeah, well, and that's, I always say to people, if I've fallen down 10 manholes and there's only 11 to fall down, wouldn't you rather just fall down the one than all 11?
Yeah, definitely.
I can say to you, Charlene, jump over that manhole there because I fell down it. Would you want to? So what I help people do is avoid all those manholes so that they only have to fall down one, meaning their timeline is now shortened to a 10th because they didn't fall down the other 10 and have to find a way to get back out of them.
Exactly.
That's a version of what I help people do.
That's what I say about any coach. Make sure the coach that you hire has already been doing what you want to do. Then you, like you said, I like the manhole analogy. That's awesome. Because then they already took on all of your mistakes that you would be making, and they can give you the key to get where you want to go. That's the answer to everything.
So can I ask you a question, Charlene, on this same topic?
Yes.
I'd love to get your thoughts on this because this is a conversation I had with different coaches. What are your thoughts, now that you said that, on the idea that some people will say, well, and they use the example of sports, but a great coach doesn't have to have done what you want to do or what you've done, like what you're aiming to do. They don't have to have done that as long as they're a good coach. Or the other side of, well, I still want the coach to have done what I'm trying to do. Because there's two trains of thought there. It depends, of course, on what I'm talking about, obviously. Because for me, I don't need the motivation, which there's a lot of coaches that they can help motivate you, even though they can't do what you're wanting to do. But the other side is, if somebody's in wealth building as a coach, I want to know that they have built that wealth once before.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so many coaches out there that say, oh, I'll help you make 6 or 7 figures. But if you ask them, they've never made 6 or 7 figures themselves. So they don't know and don't tell their person that is asking them how much work it takes to get to 7 figures and what's going to happen to you physically as a result. I know, I've been there. I ended up in hospital because I had 7 figures. So I tell people 7 figures is really great, but if you're really happy on 6, why do that to your body, right?
It's so true. And I just show, my girlfriend gets tired of this because I'll show her things that I'm going, I can see behind the curtain here, and I'm not my job to go and out this person, and it would ruin your reputation because you would be outing so many people. But like, because people will private message me and say, I want to jump into this thing you're doing, and they're telling people I help you create 7 figures, and they're asking me if they can split it over 10 payments. And
no,
we're talking thousands of dollars in certain cases, and they're saying, can I split it over 8 payments? There's something wrong with that picture. If you're coaching people to 7 figures, you should be at least at 6, but you probably should be at 7. But I'll tell you an example. I just saw this the other day on somebody's story that I know, and it's not to get confusing with this one, but the person that put it on their story, she helped this other person. The person she helped, and I screenshotted it. I won't put it publicly, but I want to show my girlfriend how this person, I screenshotted it, and she said, thanks for so-and-so. And she said, thanks to so-and-so, I just had I think she said my first 5-figure month this year and my second biggest month in history. But yet on the bottom of her thing, it said, top level wealth coach creator. So what she's saying is she's never made more than 10,000 in a month twice. She's only done it twice. And whatever number this was, it was just over 5 figures, and it was her second biggest ever, but yet she's helping you create massive wealth. To me, there's something wrong with that, because you're saying, this is what they're saying, they don't realize this, and sadly, the people reading it don't connect with this, but that means she's under 6 figures a year.
Yes,
because
absolutely.
If you only did 10,000 once this whole year, whatever number it is above 5 figures, but it's always been lower than 5 figures, that means that she hasn't made 6 figures this year. And her second biggest month was 5 figures. So that means she's probably never made 6 figures. And yet she's teaching you to create massive wealth.
Yeah. How do you do that? That's what I'm saying. You asked me a question, and I strongly believe that whatever it is that you want to do, the coach that you hire needs to have done it already. That's my thought.
I'm on the same page, but I like to ask that because, yeah, that's my thinking too.
All right, so we've run over time, but I want you to talk about this awesome gift that you have for everybody, because it's so important that they get this. I think I'm going to get it myself. I can't wait.
Awesome. Well, I so appreciate that. And in fact, if that's cool, I'm going to double down and give people 2 quick gifts, small gifts.
Okay.
One is the one that you're talking about, which is we've been talking about speaking a lot. And so in the speaking world, I try to help people with speaking, even if they can't maybe bring me on yet. Financially, maybe they can't make that work. They're just not ready yet. They're too busy. So I like to give people resources. So the resource I want to give to everybody for free, it's a book called a Book of Public Speaking. So it's called The Book of Public Speaking. And it's a real deal book. It's not like a 4-page pamphlet. It's a real deal book. It's digital. So you can get it right away for free. And the website is super easy. It's thebookofpublicspeaking.com. So it's the book.
Yeah, it's right there.
And within the book, we have insight by Tom Ziglar talking about his father, Zig Ziglar. And this is, full. There's interviews actually in the book, transcribed. There's knowledge in the book. There's quotes by other speakers. It's a really unique style of book. So that's one thing. The second thing is I have a new book out called The Book of Why and How. You can probably see a similar theme here too, right? The Book of, but The Book of Why and How. And if people want to check this out completely free, if they go to the bookofwhyaudio.com, they can go grab the free audiobook right now too.
Okay. The Book of Why, audio.com. Awesome. Okay. Wonderful.
So basically an audiobook and a digital book for free.
Perfect. Wow. See, I told everybody you were going to get some really awesome gifts. This is just amazing. Corey is so wonderful. And I've got the website right there for you. So go get his book if you want to really become an awesome speaker, because he teaches speakers and he helps you also get on TEDx. Well, thank you so much, Corey, for being with me today. I really appreciate your time. I know you're a busy man.
Well, the feeling is 1,000% mutual. And so I totally appreciate you. I thank you. I honor you. And let's call it to be continued. And we're going to get you on the show, my show, very soon as well. So
I can't wait. I can't wait. Thank you. So everybody, that was a great show, wasn't it? Didn't he give you some really wonderful information? And I just want to remind you about the Authors and Speakers Visibility Playground. You're going to want to join us there because we have such heavy hitters in that group. It's just amazing how they support each other. And we're all about lifting the whole community all at one time. And then you get to be on the show too. So thanks for being with me today. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to being with you next week. Bye-bye.